there's two kinds of people in this world, particularly within the religious, political, and economic realm. People that think short term and people that think more long term based. Now, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because people who think very short sightedly and are very interested in their own agenda tend to die out after X amount of years, whether they're in politics or religion or things like this. The reason why even those who are power hungry within politics or religion, understand and stay preserved within their political or religious or economic position for such long periods of time is because they understand that balance is key. No matter how greedy or power hungry they are, they understand the mistakes that have been made in the past by other world leaders, whether it's people like Hitler, people like Stalin, you name it. They understand that in order to keep long-term power, whether this is good or bad is not up for me to decide, but whether they keep short-term or long-term perspectives changes everything. Every single thing. Now, I do want to give a quick shout out to Dues GX before I start. He's been a big supporter of the show. He's helped me put together some information for a lot of episodes as well. So thank you so much, brother. He also does have a YouTube channel. I recommend you guys go check it out. Type in DOOZ space GX and you'll find him. If you like what you see here, you'll definitely like what you see there as well. So brother, thank you again. Now, what we need to first understand is what ether imprints are. And before we do that, we first need to also understand what the E.C.H.O protocol is. Now, according to if you do just a quick research, Project E.C.H.O military. So Project E.C.H.O is short form for Extension for Community Healthcare Outcomes, was developed by the University of New Mexico. Now, this is something to maintain a ready medical system that is provided by the Air Force for people within New Mexico. However, it is much larger than this, and it connects to a handful of projects that NASA has said they have canceled and terminated, which is not the case, but we'll get to that shortly. Now, E.C.H.O stands for esoteric, chameleonic, habilitory, objectivism. So let's go through that one by one. Now, esoteric pretty much means something, it has a few different meanings, but something spiritual or something that only a handful of people have access to that type of information to, or things like this. Chameleonic pretty much means the ability to adapt, right? I mean, chameleon, it's in the word. The next thing is habilitory, which pretty much means something that is stuck to you or permanently ingrained in you, something like maybe clothing or something even more intense than that, we can say. The next thing is objectivism, so pretty much unwavering political or religious perspective when coming to a decision. And so before I go on, I just want to mention, do you notice, especially recently, in interviews with world leaders and politicians, religious figures, and significant leaders of industry, their eyes start to sort of change almost as if they're kind of like a lizard. And before you turn this episode off, I'm not getting into the lizard thing this episode, so don't worry about that. But do you also notice that certain people kind of do a quick jerk reset, sort of like Nancy Pelosi on George Stephanopoulos on ABC, or many other cases where people bring up the Great Reset or the New World Order and they let it slip, or they actually continue to say it within their speech? This is no coincidence. The people who bring this up, they're in on it, but they are only pawns to the ones really pulling the strings. Now, I'm not going to get into this whole, secret government thing and all that. However, what we need to understand is that E.C.H.O imprints are real, and ether imprints are completely real and substantive. So, what are ether imprints? So, ether imprints are essentially barcodes that are given to each major political, religious, financial, economic, and diplomatic leader that is not a puppet, that essentially knows what is coming, knows what is going to be the future of certain outcomes of certain scenarios. However, they are privy and they are prone to suppression through the use of food and certain elements within the regular civilized realm that will actually suppress their mind. So they're imprinted with this particular barcode, a barcode that cannot be seen. But what it does is it ruptures the skin and infiltrates the body using quantum physics and quantum computation to deliver this information via the fifth dimensional realm. Now, why is this the case? This occurs because within the fifth dimensional realm, there is something that we would refer to as multidimensional or interdimensional beings. The Arcturians or the Pleiadians are one of them, one of many. Now, if you are a medium or a psychic or someone who actually just has more of an ability to tap into their pineal gland and their spiritual, I guess we could say roots, then you would know that the Pleiadians and Arcturians exist within within the fifth dimensional realm, or even fourth dimensional, in some cases even sixth and seventh, but that's for a different conversation. Now, the understanding here is that these beings ascend and descend vibrationally into different realms because their pineal gland is being harnessed so substantially. However, here on Earth, what's happening within the three-dimensional realm, in this realm, people are being suppressed through the food they eat, through the chemicals they use when they brush their teeth, through the things they drink. And what is suppressing the pineal gland? As of lately, maybe you guys have seen it all over the internet, something called fluoride. Fluoride is essentially put into every single thing that we eat, drink, smoke, you name it. Whatever we ingest or put into our body, whether it's through medicine, toothpaste, like pasta, pizza, whatever you eat, fluoride's in there. Why is this? It is to suppress the pineal gland. Now, it is said on a public level that the pineal gland is something that scientists have not fully figured out yet, and it has a certain unique electromagnetic charge to it that they cannot explain or describe. However, that is just on the public level. In the deep underground military bases underneath, with those privy to this type of information, they fully understand. Don't kid yourselves. They fully understand that they must keep the pineal gland suppressed, because if they do not, then they cannot control people like yourself and myself from ascending into these other realms and communicating with these beings. However, the interesting thing about the ether imprints is that these imprints are so informative and so powerful at a quantum level that it actually entails and lets these other beings within these higher ascended realms know that these are people of significance and importance. Now, you may have heard in the past from declassified reports and things like this that Nordic aliens, allegedly, these are documents that the FBI and CIA say are bogus, but again, you can't just write bogus on a letter and say it's not true, right? But that's what they did. They think we'll believe them. But long story short, the whole thing here is that Nordics, Greys, and all that, they only show respect and attention to higher up leaders, those within a certain command realm or a command structure, which makes sense. However, when you have this ether imprinted within you, this type of ether imprint technology, it sends an entirely different message to these species, to these other aliens, and to the rest of the world, because quantum computation with the usage of vibrational transmission of information is actually something that is harnessed telekinetically and telepathically. Now, you might say, Dave, how come we haven't discovered this on a public level? Well, I'm glad you guys asked. Let's take a look, for example, at a PDF of a document here that explains the way in which Nikola Tesla was trying to understand the fabric of the universe and his experiments. Again, I mentioned this many months ago. It's ironic that when he invents things that are useful and controllable by the government onto its citizens, they have no problem with giving him the credit. But when it's something that cannot be controlled, they want to push it away like it never even existed. So, let's take a look at this. According to Nikola Tesla, electromagnetic waves are complex vibrations of the ether. Again, notice how we're reoccurring that word already. Material substance, which is the perfect fluid of special quality. And according to modern scientific interpretations, electromagnetic waves propagate by themselves without the need for a material medium as its carrier and without any connection with the source of its origin. So, this is exactly what Tesla was trying to say here. Tesla was trying to propose that electromagnetic waves originally produced by H.Hertz and theoretically described by J.C. Maxwell that uses waves of entirely different types called non-Hertzian, end quote. So that might be a little bit confusing. Let me explain for you guys. The way we measure frequencies, at least on a public level, is through something called hertz, right? And even then, the human body and the human physical aspect of the body can only detect, visualize, and sense frequencies within a certain range. But those are only hertz frequencies. What about non-hertz frequencies? Now, many people have argued, Dave, frequencies are not the answer to the universe. Maybe not, but maybe they are. Why do I say this? Because if we look, for example, 30 to 40 years ago, gravity at that point in time on a public level was thought to have been a particle. It has turned out now that gravity is in fact a wave. So why is it that a lot of natural elemental occurrences within the nature, within the universe, and within the cosmos are more that of a physical structure of a wave rather than that of something of what we would assume to be stationary or something more binary like a particle? Right. Now, the next thing we need to connect here is that we need to understand that these imprints act as a sort of symbol to other world leaders and other beings across the universe. Now, we know lately that the former Israeli space minister spoke about the Galactic Federation. Now, the Galactic Federation members have their own form of these types of imprints put into them. However, what about human beings? What about human world leaders? It is more of that of a suppressive type of technology. And I don't like to use the word technology so much just because it's something that is a little bit limiting to the perception of the human mind. When you think of the word technology, you think of something probably clunky or some type of metal or aluminum. Think of something that transcends that. Think of something beyond that. Think of the visualization of the way in which quantum information is delivered. It is delivered through frequency waves and vibrational transmissions within the air. Now, one could say, Dave, lately you've been talking a lot about frequencies and vibrations. Yes, however, I do want to make note of the fact that these are significantly correlating proposals that allow us to connect things like Einstein's theory of relativity and gauge theory. Now, let's take a look at what gauge theory is, because this is a little bit complicated, but gauge theory is essentially the transformation between possible gauges, called gauge transformation from a Lie group, referred to as the symmetry group or the gauge group theory. Now, many powerful theories in physics are described by Lagrangians that are invariant under some symmetry transformation groups. When they are invariant under a transformation identically performed at every point in the space-time in which the physical processes occur, they are said to have a global symmetry. End quote. Now, this is according to Wikipedia. Gauge theory is used within quantum field theory and is based on the perspective of the theory of relativity. Now, I am not a physicist. I don't claim to be one by any stretch of the imagination. However, the proposal here is that these ether imprints subversively ignore the principles of Einstein's theory of relativity. That is not to say that Einstein's theory of relativity is incorrect, not by any means or any stretch of the word or the imagination. However, the full picture of the pie has not been painted here. It's kind of like eating a pizza with no slices in it. You know what I mean? So that whole concept there is something in which many people have proposed to be a type of tool that is harnessed within the realms above us and even below us that establishes some type of non-suppressive intervention within these world leaders. Now, these ether imprints, how are they harvested and why are they used? Well, first off, they are used to communicate amongst other world leaders and other leaders within other galaxies. It is a form of telecommunication, but telepathic communication, sort of in the similar way that dolphins communicate with one another. So if people start saying, Dave, you're talking nonsense, well, take a look at how dolphins communicate. It's been alleged that certain alien species, have actually spoken in ways that are very similar to the way in which dolphins communicate, which is through telepathic vibrational telekinesis. Very simple, right? Now, the next thing I want to talk about is when I say this keeps them in line, this keeps the structure and order of power in very strict regulated control, almost like a monarchy in certain sense. Now, why do I say this? I say this because those who have been imprinted, and you can actually tell because they've gotten black eyes, because after the imprint occurs, it ruptures the blood cells under the eyes, the most one of the most sensitive points of the eyes. When this occurs, what happens here is that a message is sent within the quantum realm, but then descends into all of the different levels and realms or dimensions, if you will, within our world and ones above us and others that pretty much give it out and put it out into the universe that, listen, these people are, I guess we could say awake, so to speak. And I do have to say very quickly, guys, one of the reasons why I have a little bit of trouble describing this to you guys is because, and this is a perfect example of oppression and suppression, the English language is very difficult to describe what I'm trying to explain and help you guys visualize here, because the whole idea is to make it sound so ridiculous within the English language that we can't even interpret it, right? So we understand gauge theory. Now, if we take a look at scientificamerica.com, what we'll find here is that we'll see declassified U.S. military secret Cold War space project revealed. Newly released documents describe the U.S. Air Force's secret Cold War project known as the Manned Orbiting Laboratory. What was the Manned Orbiting Laboratory? Now, this was a project that was allegedly canceled by NASA, as I said earlier in the episode, but was used as an orbiting lab that would essentially be able to harness these type of imprint technology so that no one on Earth would be able to discover it. Something that is so much more secretive than that of the deep underground military bases that they have to put it up in space. Now, why was this project canceled? It was canceled because it was actually successful. When projects are successful, what ends up happening is they cancel them on the public end. That's no secret. Now, we then have to turn our eye to Israel. Why do we have to turn our eye to Israel? Notice how every major political, financial, and religious leader is always in Israel and paying tribute to those, paying tribute to the Jews in Israel, which is on a public level. Honestly, I think it's a fantastic thing. I'm a big supporter of Israel and what they do there and things like this. Now, with that being said, I don't want to let my opinion get in the way. However, when we look at this, we have to understand that Prime Minister Netanyahu is one of the people that have been imprinted with this ether technology. Why is that? Because he is someone who has been there for such a long period of time and understands that Israel is actually one of the key countries and nations in the world that is binding together this operation and is also binding together the spiritual occult and vibrational connections between all of the other imprinted ether or ether-based imprinted leaders around the world. All right. So I want you guys to let me know what you think. There's so much more that we could delve into, such as 0-point energy and all that, but I'm going to be saving that for another episode this week. So please let me know what you guys think, and let me know if you think the E.C.H.O protocol with these ether imprints is something in which is substantially significant or is something in which should be ignored. Because at the end of the day, there's a fantastic job of covering up things that are occurring on a military level, on a public level, that they use to make it seem like it is a local operation, similar to what I described here in the New Mexico example of Project E.C.H.O on a public level. So let me know what you guys think, and we will catch you next time. Thank you very much.